Hungary's veto of a €90 billion loan for Ukraine, the widening war in the Middle East, and persistently high energy prices are set to dominate Thursday's EU summit.
Iranians have celebrated the annual fire festival despite military attacks from Israel and the United States. A Russian gas tanker has been drifting in the Mediterranean Sea for nearly 2 weeks, posing a serious ecological threat.
The 27 leaders of the European Union are heading into a stormy summit on Thursday, with Hungary's veto of a €90 billion loan for Ukraine, the widening war in the Middle East, and persistently high energy prices set to dominate the talks. From the moment leaders arrive, all eyes will be on Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, whose decision to block the support loan for Ukraine at the very last stage of the legislative process has caused widespread outrage. Another major point on Thursday's agenda will be the widening war in the Middle East and the far-reaching consequences it has triggered worldwide. Europeans were caught off guard when U.S. President Donald Trump last week asked for their help to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a vital passage for energy exports that Iran has closed off. The 27 leaders agreed that energy prices, which have remained stubbornly high since the 2022 disruption, are a major problem but disagree on how to tackle them. As an immediate solution to offset high energy bills, Brussels recommends that governments either lower taxes or roll out subsidies, both of which affect revenues. The long-term recipe, however, is far less clear, as leaders remain fiercely divided on the need for structural reforms of the energy market.
The EU has set its sights on a landmark trade deal with Australia as Commission President Ursula von der Leyen prepares to visit Sydney and Canberra for a final round of talks next week. The hard-fought agreement collapsed in 2023 due to a standoff over agriculture, with Canberra accusing Brussels of blocking market access for Australian meat exports. However, mounting global trade tensions and sweeping US tariffs have revived negotiations as the EU races to diversify its partners. The Commission knows that 83% of EU trade now takes place with countries beyond the United States, following recent deals with India, Mexico, and Indonesia. For Brussels, the deal is also a strategic move to secure critical raw materials, including lithium and cobalt, needed for the bloc's green energy transition. Beyond economy, the agreement carries significant geopolitical weight in the Indo-Pacific, where rivalry with China continues to intensify. Von der Leyen's visit marks the final stretch of a process designed to strengthen ties with a like-minded partner in one of the world's most dynamic economic regions.
This conflict.
Iranians have celebrated the annual fire festival despite military attacks from Israel and the United States and the Islamic Republic's prohibition of fireworks. Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the last Shah of Iran, called on citizens to hold the celebrations while urging the US and Israel to protect Iranians from Iranian security forces. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the people to celebrate, saying Israel was watching over them from above. In videos recorded in Tehran, security forces can be seen entering an apartment complex with a large convoy of vehicles, while chanting slogans and gunshots can be heard. Chahar-Shanbe Suri is an ancient Persian festival held on the last Wednesday of the year. It involves jumping over fire to burn away negativity and start the new year positively. In recent years, the Islamic Republic has consistently opposed these celebrations, and young Iranians often use the occasion to express their discontent with the regime's policies. About 90 ships, including oil tankers, have crossed the Strait of Hormuz since the start of the conflict with Iran. The country has exported more than 16 million barrels of oil since the beginning of March, according to maritime and trade data, despite the waterway being effectively closed and Iran claiming it will attack tankers attempting to cross. Many of the vessels were engaged in so-called dark transits, evading Western sanctions and oversight, and are likely to have links to Iran. More recently, vessels linked to India and Pakistan have also crossed the strait as governments step up negotiations. China remains the largest buyer. Oil prices rose above $100 a barrel in recent weeks, prompting US President Donald Trump to urge allies and trading partners to send warships to reopen the route in a bid to bring prices down. The Strait of Hormuz is a key route for global oil and gas, carrying about 1/5 of the world's crude oil. A Russian gas tanker has been drifting in the Mediterranean Sea for nearly 2 weeks, posing a serious environmental threat. The massive 277-meter tanker, blackened by fire, has been adrift since explosions occurred on the 3rd of March, causing the crew to abandon ship. Moscow claims that the vessel, part of sanctioned Shadow Fleet, was attacked by Ukrainian naval drones. Kyiv has not commented. According to Russian reports, explosions continue on board, gas leaks are being detected, and localized fires are breaking out. The tanks still contain about 700 tons of fuel and large volumes of natural gas, representing a high emergency risk. Environmental campaigners warn that a leak or explosion could cause long-term damage to one of the most biodiverse regions in the Mediterranean. The vessel is drifting approximately 50 nautical miles from Malta, where rescue specialists are already on site. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova stated that Moscow is keeping the situation under control as the flag state, but emphasized that international law places the responsibility for preventing an environmental threat on coastal states. While discussions continue over who should intervene, the gas tanker continues its uncontrolled course and the risk of an environmental disaster is growing.
A Belgian court has suspended its ruling on a groundbreaking climate case between a Belgian farmer and Total Energies, 2 years after it was filed. The farmer, Hugues Fallis, is backed by environmental groups including Greenpeace in a case they hope could prove a turning point in the climate fight. A verdict in the case, which has been ongoing since November, was expected on Wednesday, but has now been postponed until September, pending a decision in a similar French case which is set to take place at the end of June. Fallis is seeking compensation for damage to his farm in 4 extreme weather events that he says is directly caused by climate change. But the farmer and his backers are also seeking much broader action from Total Energies on countering climate change, for it to stop investing in new fossil fuel projects. Making its case in court, the company called it absurd to single out a particular firm over the pace of the energy transition, arguing that it accounts for less than 2% of the oil and gas sector.
Georgian Orthodox Church leader Ilia II died on Tuesday at 93, the church said, after nearly 5 decades at the helm of one of Georgia's most powerful institutions. Ilia II was hospitalized on Tuesday morning in critical condition with mass bleeding from the stomach, the hospital said. He was an epochal figure. It is a tremendous loss for the entire Orthodox Church, Shio Mujiri said, who will lead the church until the election of a new patriarch. Ilia II led the Georgian Orthodox Church since 1977, when the Caucasus country was part of the Soviet Union and religious practices were restricted. It makes him one of the world's longest-serving religious leaders. A new patriarch is set to be elected within 2 months.
Argentina has formally withdrawn from the World Health Organization, WHO, 1 year after announcing its decision. According to Foreign Minister Pablo Cuerno, Argentina's withdrawal from the WHO is effective after the formal notification made on 17 March 2025 to the UN Secretary General. President Javier Milei and his team's dispute with the WHO aligns with US President Donald Trump's criticisms of and pending withdrawal from the international body, with the US administration criticizing the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic and other global health crises. The US administration handed in its formal withdrawal announcement in January. Despite the withdrawal, the government assured that it will, quote, continue to promote international cooperation in health through bilateral agreements and at regional levels, The announcement has provoked criticism from local experts who consider the measure an aberration from a health policy point of view.
It's the outcome of his time in Normandy. He moved there in 2018 and then worked there very intensely also during the lockdown. And A Year in Normandy is very much basically a composite image. It's a 70-meter long work here, composed of 100 works. He did on the iPad, plein air, outdoors. It was inspired, of course, by the Chinese scrolls he saw in the 80s in the Metropolitan Museum, but also very much inspired by Bayeux.
I think for an artist, as they get older, of course they've got a lot of memory to lean back on and all their career that they've been through, but he's also living in the present. This is him living in Normandy, spending a year there, seeing how the seasons change. He's still enriched by nature, which I think is really beautiful and wonderful.